I never knew then what I know now. Let the fruits, they always coming, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow.
When it grows, it grows.
Whatever dies will
And when it dies, it dies. Come on.
Works will
If it works, it works.
whatever flies will
Let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
When it fails, it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will
And
soar.
when it soars, it soars.
I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will
Let it grow, let it
whatever
grow.
dies will
If it
die.
dies, it dies.
Whatever works will
When it works, it works.
whatever flies
Yeah,
will
let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
Fails, it fails.
To soar will soar.
Let it soar.
I am planting seeds.
And nothing more.
Whatever grows whatever dies will
If it dies, it dies.
works will
When it works, it works.
fly.
Yeah, let it fly, let it
Whatever
fly.
fails will
If
fail.
it fails, it fails.
To soar will soar.
Come on, let it
I
soar.
am planting seeds.
And nothing more.
Hello everyone, good evening. Just give me 1 minute. I'll share my screen. Inika, is my screen visible?
It is, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Hello everyone, welcome again and thank you so much for joining us today. You can join us from two platforms, Zoom or YouTube. Inika will share the YouTube link in the chat shortly, and you can join us from there as well. This is the pre-webinar presentation. I'll take you through this presentation just to share a few details and overview. So let's get started. To make your experience seamless and effortless, I'll take you through some of the icons that you can use during the webinar to access Zoom. First, you can use the mic button. It's in the down below given in the bar. You can use this mic button to unmute yourself and share your thoughts and views during the webinar. Second button is the video button that is next to the mic button. You can use that to switch on your videos. We would recommend you to switch on your videos throughout the webinar. Third button is the chat box button. You can open the chat window by clicking on the chat button. It's near to the right of your hand. You can put in your thoughts, your questions during the webinar in the chat window by using this chat button. Before we start, here are some norms for you. We encourage you to keep your camera on for a more interactive session. Keeping cameras on are highly motivating for our speakers and all of us to provide you effective learning experience. Please mute your mic when not speaking to reduce background noise and avoid any disturbance. Please use chat box for questions, share your thoughts and answer, and raise your hand if you would like to speak. Active participation, we would request you to participate fully and also take notes and share your insights. And in the last, that make sure that you create a safe space for each other. Yeah, welcome to the webinar Ecology and Education, Building a Foundation Through Interactive Learning. Today we have Dakshin team with us. They will guide us through an engaging session on marine ecology, exploring ecosystem, interdependence, and human-sea relationship through interactive and adaptable activities. Um, Let's begin by getting to know Dakshin Foundation, our partner organization for this webinar. Dakshin Foundation is a non-profit organization based in Bangalore, India. Their work centers on conservation and sustainable natural resource management with a strong emphasis on supporting local livelihood, social development, community involvement in environmental decision and environmental justice. Dakshin primarily focuses on Indian coastal, marine, and island ecosystem with ongoing work across mainland coastal region, the Lakshadweep Islands and Andaman and Nicobar Island. Now let's meet our speaker, Vidisha. Vidisha is an avid naturalist who is committed to bringing attention to biodiversity and conservation and nature education. She spent more than 8 years actively working in ecological research and nature education, in addition to completing a master's degree in biotechnology. Over the years, she has worked in a molecular ecology lab studying the taxonomy and biogeography of herpetofauna. She actively participated in scientific communication and outreach and studied cylinder lorises, birds, and amphibians in both urban setting and Western Ghats. While her initial focus was on terrestrial animals, she is now excited about extending her expertise to the conservation of marine organisms. At Dakshin, Vidisha works as a program officer with the Marine Flagship Team to conduct and oversee outreach activities. With that, now I'll hand it over to Vidisha. We are looking forward to a meaningful session together. Over to you, Vidisha.
Hi, Pratibha. Thank you so much for that.
Just
I
a
shall-
minute.
Yeah,
I
sure.
need to stop sharing something went wrong. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Right. Okay. Here we go. Pratibha, you will handle if anybody is trying to get into the meeting and other things, right?
Yes, we will take care of that.
All right, perfect. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, good evening. I'm Vidisha. I work with Dakshin Foundation. I've been involved in outreach and education for the past decade. My first job was to interact with children and bring them closer to nature. With that in mind, through this session today, I would like to spark that interest of marine conservation, marine ecology in you, and give you some tools and some pointers to engage with students with young children and make them understand nature, marine ecology, and how you can study other concepts like chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics, using things that are out there in the nature. I'll give you pointers through the presentation. If you have questions, I would suggest you make a note of it and we'll take them in the end. Okay, so with that, let's dive into the session. Dakshin Foundation is a Bangalore-based nonprofit organization. We are focused on conservation and upkeeping the natural resource management in India, mostly focused in sustainable livelihoods and social development and community participation of coastal communities. We work across the coastal belt of India, mainland India, Lakshadweep Islands and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Our work spans across community work, across policy, ecology, and trying to understand conflict management as well. With that background of what Dakshin does and what I do, let's get into our topic for the day. So let's explore the deep blue oceans. I have a small poll for you guys. Pratibha and Inika, if you could support me getting the poll on. I have a couple of questions just to sort of understand and also for you guys to self-evaluate how much we know about the oceans. Yeah. Pratibha, can you get the poll on right now?
Yeah, I'll launch the first poll.
Sure.
It's on the screen. If you're joining from the phone, you can swipe right or left to see the poll.
Very interesting. You need not worry about what's right or wrong. I just want you to just answer what you think is the right one. Looks good. Okay. Sure. I think we can move on to the next question. Oh, wow. Nice. Looks good. Okay, I think we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Nice. Good. Okay, I think we can move on. I can move on to the next question. Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Hi, ma'am.
Hello. I see the answers are getting faster. Good. Okay, I think we'll go on to the last question.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Well, do oceans produce any oxygen? So much water. Looks good. Okay, I think we can move on to the last one. Okay, I just want you to think, what's the first word that comes into your mind when you look at this image? Just think about it, make a mental note of it. I don't need you to tell me right now. We can address this once we are at the end of the session. But remember this image, remember what is the word that connected with you. If you're ready, then I think we can end it here and let's dive into learning now. Cool. Are we all back on our screens? Okay. Yes, perfect. Okay. Hi. So the Deep Blue Sea. I don't know if a lot of people know there was a movie called Deep Blue Sea, and which quite quite interesting movie that was. But let's dive into understanding what is there in such a vast ocean that we have. So speaking about the vastness, how okay, screen's moving. Yes. How big is our ocean? Do we know how large is our ocean? Are there different kinds of oceans? There's one large ocean or two large oceans. We've heard names of like the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean. So all of these waters are one single unit. And we've just given them names so that it's easier for us to study. So you have the Arctic Ocean towards the Arctic Pole. You have the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Oceans, quite large bodies of oceans. You have the Southern Ocean closer to the Southern Pole or Antarctica, and you have the large Indian Ocean where our country is placed. So all of these oceans are not divided at all. They are all connected. They are one single body of water. But there are some animals that are found in certain parts of the ocean and some that are not found on all of it. So there are no borders or boundaries that, like how we have segregated countries into. There are no such borders here. They're just lines or vague lines that we have come up with. So if you think I drop a bottle in North America, say in the Atlantic Ocean, do you think it's going to reach somewhere in India in the Andamans? Yes, no, maybe. Maybe it does because, like I said, the entire ocean is one singular body of water, and the water keeps circulating. But what exactly helps the water move? It's these currents, it's the warm water mixing with the cold water. And why? Why does this warm water, cold water happen? So if you remember, like the shape of the earth is sort of roundish. And from the distance that it is from the Earth, and because of the shape of the Earth, there are some parts of the globe that has more sunlight reaching its grounds, and some parts that do not reach enough sunlight. So you have cooler water towards the poles and warmer waters towards the equator. And all of these are sort of moving because of certain forces within the water, which we will talk about later. But what this movement does is it helps move oxygen, it helps move nutrition, it helps move the temperature, the heat pockets across the world. And this is what sort of keeps the biodiversity below water so high and what keeps them so alive. So let's go explore these deep oceans. But what would be our first stop? The mangroves. Mangroves are these large trees that are found in the coastlines, in our coastlines. So these are found across our mainland coastline across the world. These are full of life. You could be a characteristic of being standing on stilts over the water. These can be found on squishy black mud underneath. These are very rigid, very sturdy plants, which can grow on salty water, really high concentration of sodium. So why mangroves? Okay, yeah. So how do they survive these conditions? Imagine you have a pool of water and you need to get across, or you need to stand there, but you don't want all of your feet to get wet. What would you do? You would like tippy toe, right? Like stand on your tips of the toe and like walk around. Or imagine you're in a pool of water. What do you do to get some air? You would like have like a tube, like a snorkel. Or what would you otherwise do if if you're like trying to get some air, you like pop your head out, right? So that is something what these mangrove plants do. They either have stilts like a root system, or they have snorkel like air vent systems, or they have these knee roots, like these bent roots that sort of pop out of the mud. And interesting thing about these mangroves is that they have sort of claimed the RO system that we use in our houses, which is naturally found in them. And they are the ones that have probably invented this whole system of reverse osmosis. When you're talking to your students, you could teach them about how the root system of the mangrove trees are, and how there are specialized cells that line the root cells, which block the sodium molecules coming in. So sodium is what gives the saltiness in the water, and it just lets the water molecules pass through. And because of the negative pressure that's created upwards, the water sort of gushes in, and just the water is pumped up, and the sodium is left behind. So this is sort of a system that has made people use it in our water filters. So most of us have reverse osmosis RO water filters in our schools, colleges, in our homes. So these guys, the mangrove trees, are the ones that have thought it through, have really invented the science behind it. So what else do mangroves do for us? They are breeding grounds. They provide food, shelter, space to live. They're like natural nurseries, like how we have nurseries for young children. They go, they play, they grow, they have different experiences, they learn, all of that. Similarly, animals have also these natural nurseries, and mangroves are natural nurseries. They can be storm barriers. They can control flooding. They can control the harsh waves coming in, and all of these. Plus, they sort of filter a lot of silt. So they trap the silt, make sure that doesn't get onto the mainland, and this also holds in the nutrition. So mangroves are really rich in nutrition grounds. Let's move on. What would be our second stop? When you think of the ocean, you just don't think of the open blue sea. You also think about these rocky shores, sandy beaches. All of us love to go onto the beach, like make sand castles, pick up these seashells, pick up these starfishes that are probably dead, and you would see a bunch of life that's there. I mean, it's just sand, right? But there's so much life in it. And all of this is supported by intertidal zones because of these sandy shores. There's a lot of nutrition that the water brings in from the ocean. And as it washes away, these sand particles, they sort of trap them. And that's food for a lot of organisms. So just to live on these, in these kind of ecosystems, animals and plants have had their own way of adapting, of finding a way to survive in these conditions. And let's explore what these are. So we talked about waves, right? I said that the waves come in, they sort of bring in the nutrition, the sand sort of filters that in. But what causes waves? Like, is there somebody like sort of pushing water from one side? Not really. So winds make waves. Imagine you have a hot cup of soup and you need to cool it down, and you blow from one side, and then you see that it sort of splashes against the edges of the bowl, right? Similarly, there's wind blowing over the water, which causes these hard ripples, and which builds on and builds on and builds on, and then ends as waves onto the beach. So it's the winds that make the waves. But have you ever heard of tidal shifts? Or when we say it's a high tide time, it's not good to visit the beach right now. It's low tide time, so there's a nice beach that you can go and explore. What are these tides, and what makes the water level change so much? We've all seen, if you don't know what intertidal zones are or what the tidal shifts are, maybe this short video could help you understand. So you see the water is sort of coming into the rocky parts of the beach. And as you see the level of the water rising. A lot of the rocks are inundated now. And then slowly they go back as well. So this keeps happening a couple of times in a day, 1 or 2 times in a day. But what happens? Why is it that the water is receding back? Why do you think is the water reducing? What pushes them back into the shores? It's the moon. So we all know that there's gravitational pull. The earth has its own gravitational pull. The moon has its own gravitational pull. And the constant force that is driving it towards each other. But what happens to the water is that when the moon is closer, the water is sort of it's like the magnetic force, the gravitational pull from the moon sort of pulls the water towards it, and which causes low tides on the top. So if the moon is here, there is high tide here. If the moon is here, then the high tide is here. So imagine a rubber band, and you have the moon here, and it's sort of stretching. You see that although it's expanding on this side, it's compressing on the top. So that is what causes high tide and low tide. It's the moon and the Earth's interconnected gravitational pull that sort of creates these bulges in the water. And this happens twice a day because the Earth is also rotating, the moon is also rotating with the Earth, and hence you have low tides at different times and high tides at different times. So it's very hard condition, like there's water suddenly coming in, there's water suddenly going away. The rocks are, they have these harsh sun coming to it, and there's if the low tide is at night, then there's no sun. So there's a lot of fluctuation in these intertidal zones. We say intertidal zones is the time where these areas of the beach are affected by the tidal variation. And these can be rocky, they can be sandy, there could be anything. And depending on where you are, you can find a rocky intertidal zone or a sandy intertidal zone. These are mostly have organisms like the seaweed, like algae. These are the primary producers. They make the food of the place. You'd find hard-shelled animals because they need to be sturdy enough to face these harsh conditions. They have a lot of digging apparatus. They need to be very quick in facing these waves, and they need to dig themselves in. They need to hide. They have more streamlined body shapes. They have attachment structures. So if the water keeps coming in and going out, and you're exposed to the sun, and there are a lot of birds coming in to pick you up and eat, you would need you need a couple of adaptations to survive them. You need to be either adhere to the surface well, or you need to be have certain colorations or certain adaptations in your body to survive these kind of conditions. So camouflage. These animals can tolerate variability in salinity. So when there's low water levels, then there's more air there, there's more air circulation, the salinity is sort of lower, and when the water comes in, the salinity increases. So they need to adapt to these kind of variations. So these animals are very, very highly adapted to these intertidal zones. The sandy beaches. So we spoke about the rocky shores. Sandy beaches, vital, extremely important for a lot of organisms. We see a lot of bubbler crabs or like these fiddler crabs that we see on the beach. If you see, so there are holes in the sand, and there are these little balls of sand that is sort of decorated across surrounding these holes. These are crabs which filter out the sand and eat the microorganisms that are found. So these crabs are highly dependent on these sandy beaches. There's another creature, the sea turtle. The sea turtle these sandy beaches are extremely vital for their survival. Female turtles come to the beach. They dig up these pot-shaped nests. They lay their eggs in, cover it up, and they go away. 40 to 50 days, depending on what species these turtles are, the hatchlings come out. They make their way back into the ocean, and they spend the rest of their life in the ocean, only to come back. As if they are female turtles, they come back to the nesting beaches. So the sandy beach is a vital part of their life cycle. Apart from like having a place to reproduce, to make their nests, these sandy beaches are also vital to determining what sex they become. So do these turtles become male turtles or female turtles? Depends on how warm these sandy beaches are. With changing climate, with increasing temperatures, we see that the sandy beaches are also getting warmer, and we're seeing a lot more female turtles coming out of these nests than male turtles, which is going to have a lot of effect on how the dynamic of the population is affected. So we addressed the mangroves, we went onto the beach, we saw the nice blue ocean. Let's go dive into it. Let's see how these oceans are. Our third stop is the open ocean. So we see this vastness out there, but there's so much depth to it, right? Do we know how deep our oceans are? Like, how do we know which is the deepest point? We've used things like sonar. We've used a lot of different technology to understand how deep our oceans are, and for now we've understood that you could stack two Mount Everest below, and you could still not touch the base of the ocean at the deepest point. So it's that deep. But to sort of understand how life is found in these oceans, we've segregated them into three zones that is based on how much light gets into these waters. So you have the photic zone, or the sunlight zone, which is 100 to 200 meters, and this photic zone, which is 1,000 to 4,000 meters, where there's little less light. And then you go to aphotic zone. A is no. Aphotic means no light. So that's aphotic zone, where you get these really weird looking creatures, or these deep ocean creatures that recently are making it into the news. This is about 6,000 to 10,000 meters. And all along this, there is this continental shelf that forms in sort of a shape of a slide. Like we all as kids have like played on slides. So it sort of shapes downwards and then plateaus and then dips down and then plateaus again. So you have the intertidal zone, which is the sandy part of it. And you have the pelagic zone, which is the water. You have the benthic, the continental shift, the slope where it dips, the continental rise where it sort of plateaus, and the abyssal zone. Abyssal zone is the deepest part. So these are the zones of the ocean, and let's address what animals are found in each of these zones and what are the adaptations of those. So as there's something very interesting that happens as you go deeper. I said like these zones are based off how much light that comes in, right? There's also something that fluctuates as we go deeper. The temperature dips. The temperature dips because there's not enough sunlight coming in. The other thing that is happening is the pressure increases. So as you go deeper, the temperature dips, the pressure increases. So that is something that affects how animals are found, what kind of animals are found where, how are they adapting to it, what are the adaptations that they have, how do they survive, how do they manage to live there. But all of this is fine, but what happens to the color? We already know with these very simple experiments of dropping a pencil into a glass of water that we see that the pencil part that is inside water is magnified, and there's a sort of like a tilt, right? So underwater creatures seem larger because there is that refraction. There's also a lot of light that gets absorbed in the water. And as you go deeper, because of loss of light and the water sort of absorbing these molecules, these colors, there are certain colors that can only be seen underwater. You can only see blues and blacks and very few other colors. The first few colors that vanishes are your reds and your yellows and your oranges. The reds are completely absorbed within the first 5 meters. So sometimes when you cut your finger while you're scuba diving, you will see your blood as green. So maybe Hulk blood. You go underwater, you become Hulk. This is something that we tell to kids so they have fun with that. So let's dive into what these zones have. Photic zone, which is also called as the sunlight zone, 100 to 200 meters deep. So most of the marine life is found in this zone. It's active. There's so much happening here. There's so much life. There is always something happening. There's some predation. There's some foraging. There's something happening here. But what are the kind of adaptations that these animals have? They are small in size because there's so much light. If you're really large, you're going to be visible. You're going to be picked up by animals. So you are under constant stress of being predated. So you reduce your size for some animals. So you have the phytoplanktons and the zooplanktons, which are your primary producers and consumers. So what makes the food and what is the first one to eat those food? So the phytoplanktons, if you see on the bottom left side of the screen, these are unicellular organisms which produce, which are like plants outside. There are some things called as diatoms, which are also found in the water, which are also found in the land. And these are extremely important to produce the amount of oxygen that is being produced underwater. So it's these phytoplanktons that produce the food, the amount of oxygen that is there. all of it, all of that burden is on these unicellular organisms. Yes, there are other green life forms that are found, but these guys, the phytoplanktons they take the largest burden of producing this. You have the small size, then you need to, if you're large, if you're out there in this bright zone where there's so much light, what other thing would you do? You need to be camouflaged. Like how our defense people have green clothes with camouflage material, camouflage patterns on them. Similarly, animals use the same strategy. They camouflage, they merge with the sand, they merge with the corals, they merge with the rocks. So they have developed these patterns on the bodies, these structures on the body, so that they can blend with their background and avoid being predated. The other very interesting thing is counter shading. So this we see in some plants as well. If you see, there are leaves that are greener on top and lighter green on the bottom. Similarly, if you look at ocean animals, they're darker on the top and they are white and pale at the bottom. So if you look at, say, sharks, from the top, if you're darker colored, you can merge very easily. You will not be seen because of all the waves and little with also the refraction. But if you're underground and there's the sun coming from the top and you're quite blinded, right? There's so much light there. So if you're light color from the bottom, you still be invisible. So it's the counter shading that sort of helps them, avoid predation. But all of these things are there. What sustains them? Like they need something to eat. They need some oxygen. There's a lot that needs to be sustained these life forms. It's the coral reefs. So coral reefs are these dynamic ecosystems where you have microscopic phytoplanktons that are found, from planktons to sharks to rays to these colorful fishes to seahorses. You have so much life happening in these coral reefs, and they support their survival. So what is a coral? Coral, is it a plant or is it an animal? It's such a weird, it's a very pretty but very weird looking thing, right? So corals are basically tiny animals called polyps, and they are related to anemone fish. If you remember watching Nemo, Nemo's house, which is an anemone, those are anemones, and polyps are also very closely related to that, and the jellyfish. And they live in large colonies, so that's why you find coral reefs in colonies. And they have something very important called zooxanthellae. So zooxanthellae are these microscopic organisms which are found within these structures, which give them the color. So it's a sort of a symbiotic relationship where the zooxanthellae produces, because they can produce their own food, they produce the food and give it to these coral polyps, and the polyps provide shelter and they bring in the water. So there is a nice water funneling system that the corals have evolved so that the fresh water keeps coming in and these zooxanthellae produce food. So they are very happy living together. But what happens when temperature increases? The first reaction of these coral reefs is to let go of the zooxanthellae. The zooxanthellae just let go, and you would see, white corals. So, like I said, zooxanthellae provides these colors, and when they let go of the coral polyps, they are bleached, or they lose all of their color, and they could come back, but it's a much longer procedure, and it takes time. It's not very easy for the coral polyps to get the zooxanthellae back. And like I said, the algae, the zooxanthellae, they're algae. They provide the food. The reefs provide the skeletal system, and they are one full ecosystem by themselves. What are the different kind of adaptations plants have? So they can be of different colors, so that they can adapt a lot more colors. They can absorb a lot more wavelengths of the light. And the other things that the other adaptation that they have is flexible bendy bodies. So imagine if you're a tree, you're very sturdy, and then you have like very harsh wind blowing. And if you're not going with the wind, you're very sturdy, you would fall, right? So you cannot be as rigid and sturdy as you are in above water. So these plants have evolved these bendy stems to withstand the waves and the currents that are going through. And you have a lot of really beautiful movements happening like this underwater. The other adaptation is hard shells. A lot of organisms come with hard shells because they need to be able to retreat into them or avoid being predated because of these hard shells. They have spines and venom. You have your lionfish or your sea snakes. You have sharks. You have rays that have stingers. So they come with a lot of spines and venom to avoid predation. So we see that we just saw a video of some grass underground, but like what's with so much grass underground? Who is planting them? Is it some company who has their garden space that is being manicured and maintained? Well, no, they're called seagrasses. So seagrasses form these large meadows, which are marine plants, and they are found in very shallow waters and in brackish waters. And these sustain a lot of life forms. They are very important habitats for a lot of fish, a lot of green turtles. There are dugongs that are which only eat seagrass. There are sea turtles that only eat seagrass. So they rely on a network of roots and rhizomes to anchor them into place. We saw how much waves are affecting them. They're constantly in motion. Imagine there's a large current and like if they are ripped apart, like they need to anchor themselves, right? So they depend largely on their network of roots, which is very intertwined, and rhizomes to sort of anchor them into place. But they grow on very soft and on the sediments under the water. The green turtles are largely vegetarian, mostly vegetarian when they are adults, and they feed on seagrasses. So that was the photic zone. Let's go deeper. Let's go into the dysphotic zone or the twilight zone, where the light sort of reduces. The animals also change. They have different adaptations, and the pressure is also increasing, like how we talked about. The light is decreasing, the temperature is decreasing, but the pressure is increasing. Why does this pressure increase? Like imagine a colleague of mine explained this beautifully. I really like this explanation. Imagine you have a bucket of water and you have it on top of your head, and it's very lightweight. You don't have any problem holding it up. But imagine I pour a mug full of water, so it just gets a little more heavier, right? Imagine I'm going to keep on pouring water, and the water level increases and increases and increases. The pressure sort of increases, right? You're finding it difficult to hold it on top of your head. You're sort of like wobbling, right? So the pressure as you go deeper with water level increasing above your head, the pressure also increases. So that's a nice way if you want to teach your class kids about pressure and how pressure increases as you go deeper. Which is also the case when you're climbing up the mountain. The temperature sort of decreases, the pressure increases. Similar case in the terrestrial ecosystem as well as in the underwater ecosystem. So flora and fauna have to deal with so much darkness here. The water is cold. So they have evolved bioluminescence. You can split this word into three parts: bioluminescence. So bio is biological, lumi is light, nescence is the lightness. So you have a lot of organisms that have evolved these ways of being seen but also not seen in the ecosystem. So the science is similar to how we have these jugnu or your fireflies. So fireflies are use the same mechanism. There's a chemical that is sort of is behind this bioluminescence, which makes them glow underwater. They have large eyes. So imagine a parallel to this would be an owl. So if you're an owl, you are active during the evening hours or at night. So how much light is there? There's very little light. And if you have really small eyes, there's only so much light that can pass through your eyes, right? So if you have large eyes, you can have more light rays coming into, and you can see a larger part of the world. Similarly, like if you have a small hole, to explain this, you could use two sheets with a small hole and a large hole. Take a torch, and then if you poke, show it against the hole, you will see only small beams of light that come past, right? And then replace the sheet with a larger hole, and show the torch, and then you have a lot more light coming in. So it's the same case. You can teach children how size of the eye affects the amount of light that gets in and how much they can see. So like owls need larger eyes to be able to see at night. A lot of animals here, because there's so much less light, have large eyes. Plants have a lot of red pigment, which helps them absorb a lot of the light, and they have flat and thin, as in the thickness of the leaves are very thin. It's very thin. Imagine you have a plate outside in the sun and a spoon, or maybe a fork or something that's thinner and smaller. What gets hotter in the day? Like if you leave it out for like about 10 minutes, what gets hotter? It's the plate, right? Because the surface area is much larger. It can capture a lot more heat. Sorry. So plants have flatter body structure to be able to capture a lot more of the light. Let's go deeper. So to the aphotic zone is the midnight zone where there's almost no light, or it's pitch dark. It's the deepest part of the ocean, from 6,000 to 10,000 meters approximately. We don't see any plants here. Why? Because there's no light. And what do plants need? They need light. They need to be able to do photosynthesis. Without any light, there are no plants here. But without any plants, what kind of animals can be found here? What sustains life here? Additional luminescence, bioluminescence. So the level of bioluminescence is heightened. The kind of animals that you get here, because the pressure is so high, there is no light. There are really weird looking, very alien looking creatures. You have a lot more jellyfishes. You have these anglerfishes. You have a lot of these amphipods that you get there. But how do they survive here? Large mouths and large stomachs. We know that deeper you go, the lesser the life forms that you get there. The biodiversity sort of decreases. The abundance of life form decreases. And as that happens, your food source is also decreasing. So you need to be able to make most of the opportunity of getting food. So you need to be able to grab a big mouth. So imagine you're very hungry and you've been given a burger after a whole day of starvation. You take like the biggest bite, right? Like you have your mouth open and like take the big bite. So similarly, like you would not want any of those possible prey organisms to be left out. So you open your mouth wide, capture whatever is there, and then eat it. Or you could increase the storage capacity. So you could eat a lot and then you could store it for long. So not only is your food resources limited, it's also for limited duration. So you need to be able to sustain yourself for longer. So for that, you increase the storage system. So you increase the size of your stomach. You also use strategies to lure prey towards you, like how the anglerfish has a little spot of headlight that attracts these small fishes, and these anglerfishes sort of like really grab the food that comes in. So these are the kind of adaptations that these animals have. So there's less food, like I said, so there is less energy, and the animals also move very less. So there are these fish that have these tripod sort of adaptation to them, which helps them sort of like just sway with the waves, with the currents, and whatever comes through, they're just going to grab it and eat it. So they're not moving because they want to save the energy, because there is less food, there's less movement. They're just going to grab whatever is going to come. So we learned about so many of these organisms, right? But yeah, they're found in different zones. Like what they are found in different zones, but they are still a part of the same ecosystem. But how are they really connected? Like what connects these animals to one another? The food chain. So I spoke about the producers, that make the food. Like in the ocean, you have the algae, you have the phytoplanktons, which are the primary producers. You have the seagrass meadows. You have these coral reefs. So all of these are part of the primary producers. Then you have the primary consumers, which are the zooplanktons, which are basically they look very similar to your shrimps and your shrimps, the kakadis, kikra, pardon me, I don't remember what the Hindi name for it, but it's basically these shrimps and these lobster-like organisms that feed on these phytoplanktons and these algae and all of that. And they are the larger body of your primary consumers. They are consumed by secondary consumers, which are other fish like the sardines, which are then consumed by tuna, or they are the intermediate or the mesopredators. Then you have the higher, like the larger predators or the top predators, like your sharks, like your rays. You also have primary consumers, which are also green turtles, which feed on these algal forms and these seagrasses. But they are also they can also be eaten by sharks. So they are a part of the whole ecosystem. In all of these, in the marine ecosystem, you have the bacteria, which decomposes. And there are multiple levels where they are interconnected. There are multiple kinds of predators. There are different kinds of mesopredators. There are different kinds of primary consumers and primary producers. A similar parallel that you can draw from the terrestrial ecosystem is your trees and your grass. So all of these are primary producers. They do photosynthesis. They produce all the food. What eats them? Ants, insects, different things like that. Insects eat them. Grasshoppers eat them. So they are your primary consumers. And then who eats them? The frogs, the geckos, the civets, the centipedes. All of these eat the primary consumers, which form the secondary consumers. And then you have the tertiary consumers like your snakes, your birds, and all of these are also eaten by a apex predator, which is the humans. So when you have these different levels of producers and consumers, there's energy that is transformed, like that's transferred, right? So primary producers, if you say, have 10,000 units of energy, that there is a loss as you go higher up the trophic level. This is what we call as trophic levels. As you go higher and higher in the trophic level, there's a reduction in the energy that is transformed. So if there is 10,000 units of energy that is produced by the primary producers, there's 1,000 units that eventually ends up in the primary consumers. That is then further reduced into secondary consumers, which is then later reduced into tertiary consumers. So as you go higher up in the trophic level ecosystems, in the ecosystem, the energy reduces. So these animals have to consume a large chunk of food. So they need to eat more to be able to match the energy levels. And there's another way of looking at it. Imagine if there are toxins. So primary consumers, primary producers, there are some toxin. There is some sort of heavy metal that is gotten into these primary producers, which are eaten by primary consumers. So they eat a lot of it. So when you're consuming a lot of it, the toxin gets retained by you. And there's a lot more organisms that eat these primary consumers, and they eat in large numbers. So imagine all of this is just flipped the other way, where you have your apex predators and your tertiary consumers getting the largest chunk of the toxin, which we call as biomagnification. So this is another there's an activity that you can do to teach children this concept as well. So what we spoke about, different things allowing these organisms to, survive and sustain themselves. But there are two major buckets of factors that help organisms survive and thrive in these ecosystems. You have the abiotic factors or the biotic factors. Abiotic means non-living or non-biological, and biotic is biological factors. So abiotic factors, the temperature, how hot or cold it is, how salty it is, how much light comes in, how much water currents are there, what's the oxygen level in this water, so what's the pH, what's the pH because of ocean acidification, or other things that affect pH in the water. Biotic factors, what is the level of predation? How much is the competition? If there are too many competing animals found in the same ecosystem, same level of the ecosystem, they will have to separate out. So they have to separate their niches. So imagine like in a school which has different floors, and you have chocolates put in one floor, and there's no chocolate anywhere else, and you have kids fighting, like this constant fight about who gets how many chocolates. Imagine just segregating all of those chocolates across the 3 or 4 levels of the school. You have some kids who go all the way to the top floor. There are some kids that go to the ground floor. The young kids may just go to the ground floor, or like they segregate themselves. So they're avoiding competition. So these are some of the factors that affect where different animals are found and why they are found there. Symbiosis. Are there other animals that they can have symbiotic relationship with? Is there herbivory? Like, are there too many herbivores feeding on the plants? What's the decomposition levels? All of these abiotic and biotic factors affect where these animals are found and why and how they are found. So we spoke about why they are interconnected, but why do they matter? I mean, they're just animals. They're just doing their thing. They're just eating, they're sleeping, they're reproducing, they're dying. But what role do they have? Any role in the ecosystem? Well, yes. So this is from a very human perspective. They are actually just going about living their lives. We as humans have put them into 4 buckets of ecosystem services, which is provisioning, regulating, supporting, and cultural services. Provisioning are what we take, like the provision stores. Similarly, provisioning is what we need. We need them. We need these animals as fish food, as livestock, or they are direct products for like drinking water, for timber, for oils, for natural gas. Then you have the regulating ecosystem, which do regulating tasks like pollination, purification of the water, avoiding erosion, flood control, carbon storage. All of these are regulating services. You have the supporting services, where essential things like photosynthesis, your nutrition cycling, your creation of the soils and the water cycle. So all of these form the supporting ecosystem services. Then you have cultural. We as humans have a lot of cultural requirements. A lot of creativity has come about because of the oceans. People have produced music using the waves of the ocean. There's so much recreational services that these oceans give us. Provisioning like food, raw materials, and medicinal resources. Regulating, like climate regulation. They store a lot of carbon, decreasing the amount of carbon that's out in the atmosphere, reducing the amount of heat that is held back and leading to climate change. Protecting our coastal ecosystems. Without these marine mangrove ecosystems or your seagrass ecosystems, your coastal towns are not protected. You're removing that barrier which prevents them from the harsh effects of climate change and the ocean sort of coming in. So these ecosystems provide a lot of these regulating services. They purify water. They carbon sequester, store carbon. A good example of how mangrove sort of protects them is by supporting biodiversity. We spoke about these mangroves being these nurseries, right? They support a lot of these young animals when they are in their early life stages to sort of live, develop, explore, learn things, and then go into the deeper ocean. They are amazing at storing carbon. The amount of biomass that they bring in, because of which they can store carbon, which is amazing. They reduce coastal erosion. They protect the coastal towns and cities from flooding by reducing the waves crashing into them and reducing the intensity of these waves. Remove mangroves, you have a lot more coastal flooding, which we've seen in several of our coastal towns. Then you have your supporting services, which are extremely important, like your primary production of oxygen, the production, like because of photosynthesis, there's food produced. There is habitats that are formed, like your seagrass meadows form habitats. Your mangroves are habitat formers. They maintain biodiversity. They cycle nutrition. All of these are supporting services. They provide cultural services, recreational and tourism, spiritual and religious values. They are stores of in traditional knowledge and practices. They are like living labs for education and scientific value. We've had so many children that we take out for nature walks, for intertidal walks, and you can talk to them about physics, you can talk to them about chemistry, you can talk to them about biology, a lot of different concepts. You can teach them math using things out in the nature. And these are what we call living labs for you to be able to engage your student in more holistic learning. But these things don't only provide one kind of ecosystem service. They could provide a lot more, like your mangroves. They provide firewood, honey, fishing nursery grounds. They regulate they have regulating ecosystem services like coastal protection, carbon storage. They provide supporting like habitat formation, nutrition, cycling, cultural, yeah, secret grows. There's a lot of local folklore, traditional fishing is dependent on mangroves. So different ecosystems, like different parts of the marine ecosystem provide different kinds of ecosystem services. And they are all playing a part in keeping this ecosystem together. One good example is of the seagrass meadows. Seagrass meadows are very important for bait fish, which are these small fish that are found in the seagrass. They grow there, they use it as their habitat, which is very important for fisher folks to fish them for tuna. So they use these little fish as bait fish to catch tuna, which feeds into their livelihoods. But the seagrasses, the green turtles are also dependent on seagrasses. Where if the seagrasses are overfed because of the turtles increasing and overfeeding on them, the bait fish is affected. And because of that, the tuna fishing is affected, and the fisher folk, the local community that is dependent on tuna fishing is affected. So you have this very nuanced, very interconnected relationship that happens, which a lot of us don't even know that we are meddling with because of the changes that we as humans are bringing about in these ecosystems. The fishing industry supports about 3 billion people in the world, and in India, it's one of those sectors that provides livelihood to more than 16 million people. And as you go higher, as you level up in the value chain, the money increases. So there's some amount that the fisher folk earn. Then there is these people who package them, and then there's the transport, and then there are the sellers. And then you also have the dried fish industry. You have the fish oil and fish meal, chicken feed industry that's also highly dependent on the fishing sector. So there's a lot of people that are dependent on our oceans, and without us being able to understand the nuances and the interconnectedness behind different levels of these ecosystem, us meddling with any of it can have very drastic effect on us because we are dependent on these ecosystems. So what do we depend on? We depend on the ocean for fish, seafood, for salt. There's this whole salt industry that's dependent on the oceans, shells, seaweed. There's a lot of jobs that the ocean gives people. They can be fishers, they could be traders, they could be boat builders. They could use it as tourism, as a platform for tourism. The communities they shape ecosystems as well. So overfishing can or pollution can harm marine life. Um, Sustainable practices can help the ecosystem recover, can help them sustain for longer. There's a lot of traditional knowledge that really helps and feeds into conservation that we need to, at this point, understand, appreciate, and acknowledge. So the motto is healthy oceans is secure livelihoods. You have healthy oceans, you can secure a lot of their livelihoods of those 16 billion people that are dependent on these open oceans. If you create an imbalance in the marine food chain, so for example, if you're overfishing sharks or these top predators, the population of the secondary consumers like sardines, they are going to increase, which are going to decrease the population of the zooplanktons, which are your primary consumers, which will increase the population of the producers. So you have a lot more. So if you've seen parts of the ocean where it's green, it's because of these algal blooms that happens, which we see in our lakes as well. The same imbalance is also seen in terrestrial ecosystems where, removal of your tigers can affect how rivers are flowing. So there's this nuanced interconnectedness because of the interconnectedness in the marine or the terrestrial food chains, which we knowingly or unknowingly are affecting these connections. Can you imagine having a landfill upstream, not even upstream, within a city, and imagine that affecting coral reefs or seagrass meadows in the ocean? How do you think this happens? Imagine you're filling a land, the groundwater is affected by the toxins. Then there's a river flowing, there's toxins that are let out from the factories into these oceans, run away from your fields, your agricultural fields, that runs into the water. So there's landfills, there's this effluence from the industry, there's effluent from the fertilizer and the pesticides that's used in the agricultural fields. All of these flow through the water in the river. And then where do they end up? They end up in the ocean. And there's so much nutrition that is ending up in the ocean. And there's so much toxin that ends up in the ocean, which affects the whole ecosystem. We saw so many amazing animals that are found in these ecosystems that are sustaining because they have those seagrass meadows, you have your coral reefs, all of this, which are sustaining life there. And with all of these toxins and other effluents that are coming in, they damage these ecosystems and hence affecting the downstream animals, like even your deeper ocean animals are being affected by a simple thing as a landfill, in inland. So with all of these knowledge that we just got, there are ways that you can teach this to children. There's a very easy game that we play called the connections game. This is on the same lines as the New York Times connections game. You give them a bunch of words and they have to group them into 4 categories. So if you look at this group of words, you could connect them as coral reefs, as corals, clownfish, polyps, and zooxanthellae, mangroves, nursery, frog roots, and mud, tuna, phytoplankton, blue whales, and currents, turtle grass, grazing, dugongs, and seagrasses. You could do the same set of words and then put them as ecosystem service providers. You can have these 4 ecosystem providers, and you could, like I said, you could have one thing providing more than one ecosystem service. You can just let them understand what they relate to. Are these animals providing them more regulatory services or cultural services? what is it that they relate to? So you could let the children understand and explore what they relate to with these words. There is another lovely game that you can play to understand the different animals that are found in different zones of the of the ocean. You could draw the structure without the animals on the floor or in your playground and divide them into different sections of the ocean, like aphotic, dysphotic, and aphotic, benthic, pelagic. Like we played in this school. So you draw the ecosystem on the floor, and you have a bank of animals. You read the traits that these animals have, because of which they are found in certain places, certain levels of the ecosystem. You read out the characters. The group of students who answers like, okay, this is this animal. And you also ask them, okay, so you identified the animal. Which zone do you think the animal is found in? And the student answers it. If he fails to, you could teach them, use this as a teaching moment. You could give them a placard that has the name and probably a picture of the animal, and they can go stand in these zones. In the end, by the end of the game, you've had the children become the ecosystem, become a part of the ecosystem, and understand what kind of animals are found in which part of the ecosystem, and they know where they belong. So it's very relatable. These kids, it just sparks this understanding in them. You could also use simple games like Jenga to understand the balance. So there's one story that I keep telling everybody. So imagine there's a plane, there's an aeroplane, and there are so many rivets in it, right? Like there's so many joints, there are so many mechanical elements in it. Imagine you remove one of those rivets or one of those joints. Maybe nothing happens, and randomly you pick out another joint. Maybe you hear some rattling sounds, nothing major, but you remove a couple more, one of the engine shuts down. Then you remove a couple more, the other engine shuts down. And then you have like the plane just collapsing. So you never know that which is that one, important bolt or nut that you remove, with a rivet that you remove, which led to an entire collapse of the ecosystem, right? So this message is very nuanced. In a very nuanced way, you can teach children by using Jenga blocks. So you can have Jenga blocks which can be numbered, or you can write numbers on them. You can have a list of animals that against each number, and you could roll a die, or you could pick up chits with numbers, and the kids can read the number, and then you say which animal has been removed from the ecosystem because of, say, some toxin in the water, or because of overfishing, or something else that affects these animals. And you remove that particular Jenga piece from the block. And as you keep removing and removing, there's always that one piece that you remove and the entire Jenga block collapses. This moment is when children really understand how fragile this whole balance of the ecosystem is, and us meddling with it in unknowing ways can really push them into a collapse. So these are some of the games that we've used, some of the techniques that we've used to teach children how to understand marine ecosystem, how to understand terrestrial ecosystems, or any ecosystem for that matter, and how you can use these tools to teach them and just spark that interest in them. You could use examples from this to teach chemistry, biology, mathematics. There are endless ideas with these concepts that you can teach them with. But this is a small bank of it. If you need more ideas, or if there are some questions that you have, I'm very happy to address them. But there's one message that I would like to give, is that interconnectedness matters. We are all a part of the ecosystem. What affects the ocean also affects us. So let's protect the ocean together to protect ourselves. Thank you, and I will end at that. Pratibha?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vidisha, for you can see that there are lots of gratitude coming in the chat already. But
Okay.
thank you for facilitating such a clear and informative session today. The way you have unpacked the complex concepts like role of mangroves in the coastal protection and how different marine zones support biodiversity, I think it made it highly relevant for us to understand, today's environmental challenges. We are confident that our participants are walking away with numerous innovative ideas and skills that they can bring back to their classroom and implement effectively. Your time and expertise have truly made a difference, and we appreciate your contribution immensely. Thank you once again, Vidisha. Um, I would now request Inika to share
Thank
the
you.
I'll request Inika to share the feedback link in the chat. Dear participants, please take a moment to fill out the feedback form given in the chat. Um, Please fill the feedback form. If you will be able to get the certificate only if you fill the feedback form. To those of you who do not have the Firki account yet, we have shared a guidance video through email and bot message as well. Please watch it to understand how you can log into Firki portal and access your certificate. Thank you once again for joining us. We will keep the call open for next 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for a beautiful explanation and total information given by Kulkarni ma'am is really wonderful, ma'am.
Thank you.
I've got a lot of information and really I appreciate to the Firki team giving us such an opportunity to attend, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing this. Really means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very kind of you. If there are any questions about the concepts that I spoke about, please feel free to ask them. I'll answer them to my best capability. I see there's the explanation for biomagnification. All right. So if you remember the triangle that we drew, is my video visible?
No, we can't see your video,
Oh,
Vidisha.
okay. Just give me 1 second. Am I visible now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you remember the triangle that I showed on the screen, and you had the primary consumers in the bottom, and there was a number against it, right? So let me find. Okay, so the primary consumers, if imagine there's some heavy metals, say you have a lot more. Just take any of these heavy metals. There's heavy metals found in these primary producers. So your primary consumers, which are your first trophic level above the producers, are consuming these producers, right? They're consuming a lot of these, and you need to consume a lot more to be able to get a good level of energy. So we also saw that there's a loss of energy, right, at every trophic level going up. So your primary producers have, say, if they have 10,000 units, you'll have 1,000 units that gets transferred into your primary consumers, and then lesser and lesser. So higher you go in the trophic level, you have to consume a lot more food to be able to get that much energy to sustain, right? So when you're consuming a lot more food, you're also increasing the amount of toxin that is there in those in the food that you eat, right? If you're only eating peanuts, and imagine there's a toxin in the peanut, You can't fill your stomach with just like 1 or 2 peanuts, right? You need to eat a whole bunch of it, right? And imagine you're eating so much, there's so much toxin that gets into your body, and there's somebody else, some other animal that's eating you, right? And then there's something else that eats more of you. So imagine as you're increasing your food intake because you need that much energy to sustain, you're also increasing the amount of toxin that gets into your body, right? So as you go higher in the trophic level, your toxin levels are also increasing. And this concept is called biomagnification. I hope I've cleared that doubt. Why don't we have any higher level of consumer watery consumer? You have, I mean, you could break them further, but the larger chunk of consumers, they are either primary, secondary, and tertiary, and then you have the apex. They're mostly clubbed together. Our quaternary consumers could be us as apex predators. You could put them as quaternary consumers. So an activity to explain this is
Hello everyone. I think Vidisha is facing some internet issue. She has shared her email also at the end of the session. If she's not able to connect back, we can definitely share any question, ask her through the email. If you have also any question related to how to download certificate or any technical issue, you can ask us in this.